12 businesses. 10 years. And by the end of the 1990s, some of the most important Black-owned companies in America had lost their ownership, their contracts, their land, or their future. The 1990s are usually remembered as a decade of expansion, stock market growth, corporate mergers, new media, and booming consumer confidence. But inside Black America, that same decade looked very different. It was the decade when one bank collapse sent a message to every Black institution in the country. It was the decade when multinational beauty companies swallowed the businesses that had built the ethnic hair care market from scratch. It was the decade when government rules changed just enough for Black contractors, Black broadcasters, Black farmers, and Black retailers to start disappearing in plain sight. This is not a story about one bad year or one bad CEO. This is a story about 12 Black businesses and sectors that ran into the same wall from 12 different directions. Let's count them down. Number 12. Freedom National Bank in Harlem, New York. Harlem did not just lose a bank in 1990. It lost the institution that held the deposits of its churches, nonprofits, and civil rights organizations. Freedom National Bank had been founded in 1964 by Black business and civic leaders, including Jackie Robinson, because mainstream banks were not seriously lending to Black Harlem. People put money there, not because it was the most convenient place to bank, but because they understood exactly what it represented. When the recession of 1990 hit, Freedom National collapsed under the weight of risky loans and rapid expansion, but the real wound came from how regulators handled the failure. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation rigidly enforced the $100,000 insurance cap, and depositors with balances above that threshold got only 50 cents on the uninsured dollar. Many of those depositors were community institutions. The lesson was brutal. In a Black-owned bank, your money was exposed. In a larger white-owned bank, the government was far more likely to find a way to protect it. Freedom National's death wasn't just a financial event. It was a warning to every major depositor in Black America. Number 11. Johnson Products Company in Chicago, Illinois. Afro Sheen was not just a hair product. It was a symbol that Black consumers could build an entire industry large enough for Wall Street to take seriously. George and Joan Johnson built Johnson Products out of almost nothing, and the company became the first Black-owned business listed on the American Stock Exchange. That should have been the beginning of a much larger era of Black industrial ownership. Instead, by the early 1990s, internal instability and external pressure converged. The company had already proven that Black hair care was big business, which meant multinational firms no longer saw it as a niche. They saw it as territory. In 1993, Johnson Products was sold to IVAX Corporation for about $67 million, sparking backlash from leaders who understood the sale meant more than just a change in management. The product survived, the ownership did not, and that distinction matters more than people think. Number 10. Soft Sheen Products in Chicago, Illinois. L'Oreal did not build its position in Black hair care by patiently inventing the market from the ground up. It entered a market Black entrepreneurs had already built, then started buying the winners. Soft Sheen, founded by Edward and Betty and Gardner, had become the largest Black-owned beauty products company in the United States, with blockbuster brands tied to the enormous 1980s hair care economy. By the end of the decade, that success made it irresistible to acquisition. L'Oreal bought Soft Sheen in 1998 for roughly $160 million. Then followed that by acquiring Carson and combining the two into Soft Sheen Carson. The merger was so sweeping that the Department of Justice challenged it on antitrust grounds, warning it would create a single company controlling more than half of the adult women's relaxer market. That tells you everything you need to know. Black entrepreneurs didn't lose this market because they misread consumers. They lost it because the market got too profitable to be left in their hands. Number 9. Proline Corporation in Dallas, Texas. Some entrepreneurs build a successful company. Comer Cottrell changed consumer behavior. His curly kit made the Jerry curl cheap enough and easy enough to be done at home, turning what had been a salon-dependent look into a mass-market product. That single move exploded Proline into a global business. The important part is what happened next. For years, Proline existed in the sights of bigger companies that understood exactly what it had become. Not just a competitor, but an acquisition target. By the time Cottrell sold Proline to Alberto Culver around 2000 for an estimated $75 to $80 million, the pattern was already obvious. Johnson Products, Soft Sheen, Proline, the biggest names in black hair care, were no longer being beaten by rivals with better ideas. They were being absorbed by corporations with more capital. Number 8. Fedco Foods Corporation in the Bronx, New York. A grocery chain can look like a simple retail business from the outside. But in a neighborhood economy, a grocery chain is jobs, logistics, distribution, supplier relationships, and local financial circulation all at once. James Bruce Llewellyn turned Fedco Foods into the largest minority-owned supermarket chain in the United States, with dozens of stores and around $100 million in sales at its peak. What undermined Fedco was not some sudden loss of customer demand. It was the quiet abandonment of the rules that had once protected smaller retailers from giant chains. For decades, the Robinson-Patman Act was supposed to prevent powerful corporations from using their size to extract supplier discounts unavailable to independents. By the 1980s and 1990s, enforcement had withered to almost nothing, and the large chains could squeeze suppliers and rivals at a scale independents could not match. Fedco got caught in that shift. By 1999, Llewellyn sold what remained to Dayton Hudson, and the real estate moved under the Target brand. That was not just a grocery store, it was the dismantling of an independent supply chain. Number 7. Parks Sausage Company in Baltimore, Maryland. Thousands of baseball fans walk over the remains of a black industrial success story every season and probably have no idea. Before Camden Yards became one of the most famous stadiums in America, that land was tied to Parks Sausage, one of the most important black-owned manufacturing companies on the East Coast. The company had historic status and real momentum, with major supply contracts and tens of millions in annual sales under Raymond V. Haysbert Sr. Then the stadium project came. Parks was forced to relocate under the pressure of eminent domain, and the cost of moving a large processing operation was devastating. Even with state support, the relocation plunged the company into debt, disrupted operations, and opened the door for bigger competitors to poach contracts while Parks was trying to rebuild. By 1995, the company was up for sale, and by 1996, it was in bankruptcy. The company did not fail because customers stopped recognizing the brand. It was structurally knocked off balance, then bled out. Number 6. Black construction firms, after City of Richmond versus J.A. Croson Company. The most dangerous thing about black construction firms in the late 1980s was that they were finally starting to win. Municipal set-aside programs had begun creating a pipeline for black-owned contractors to get real public work, grow payrolls, buy equipment, and scale into serious firms. For the first time, a generation of black industrial businesses had a chance to move beyond survival and into permanence. Then the legal floor vanished. The Supreme Court's 1989 Croson decision imposed strict scrutiny on race-conscious contracting programs and made cities terrified to maintain them without exhaustive local evidence of past discrimination. Many jurisdictions backed away almost immediately. The results were catastrophic. In some cities, minority contracting fell by more than 90% after Croson. That kind of collapse does not mean a market corrected itself. It means a policy door was slammed shut on businesses that had already borrowed, hired, and expanded in reliance on it. Number 5. Radio One and black-owned radio. 32 banks said no before Cathy Hughes got her first station. That number matters because it tells you how difficult it already was to build black media even before deregulation started to change the economics of broadcasting. Hughes eventually built Radio One into the largest black-owned radio company in the nation, which should have marked the start of a broader ownership wave. Instead, Radio One became the exception in the middle of a collapse. The Telecommunications Act of 1996 removed major ownership limits and accelerated radio consolidation across the country. Once those caps came off, giant firms could buy local stations at a pace independent owners could not possibly match. The result was fewer independent black-owned stations, less local programming, and more centralized content built for scale rather than community. So while Hughes survived, the sector around her was being hollowed out. That is not the same as progress. Number 4. Emerge Magazine. Some businesses make money. Some businesses create intellectual oxygen. Emerge Magazine did the second thing. Under George E. Curry, it became one of the sharpest and most politically fearless publications aimed at Black readers, with serious reporting and a voice mainstream outlets rarely matched. That kind of outlet becomes fragile the moment ownership shifts away from editorial mission and toward portfolio logic. After BET took a majority stake and later moved into the orbit of Viacom, Emerge's future was no longer tied only to its readers or its journalism. It was tied to corporate strategy. In 2000, the magazine was shut down. The loss was bigger than the closure of one title. It meant one of the few uncompromising Black political newsrooms in national media had been removed from the field. Number 3. TLC Beatrice International Holdings. A company operating in 31 countries and generating more than $1 billion in annual revenue should have been impossible to ignore. That is exactly what Reginald F. Lewis built with TLC Beatrice, after pulling off one of the most remarkable leverage buyouts in American business history. He proved, at a scale few Black entrepreneurs had ever been allowed to reach, that a Black-owned company could compete globally. Then Lewis died in 1993 at age 50, and the knives came out fast. Carlton Investments sued over a $22.1 million compensation package he had earned while alive and successfully leading the company, creating a legal and managerial crisis right as the business was trying to survive a founder transition. Within a few years, the enterprise was being dismantled and sold off in pieces. That is one of the clearest examples on this list of how vulnerability after a founder's death could be converted into an opening for dismantlement. Number 2. Black farmers and the United States Department of Agriculture. The federal government did not need to send armed men to seize Black farmland in the late 20th century. It had a quieter weapon: delay. Black farmers repeatedly reported that local United States Department of Agriculture offices stalled loans, denied credit, or processed aid too late to be useful, while white farmers got decisions in time to plant, harvest, and survive. Farming is brutally time-sensitive. A delayed operating loan can mean a missed season. A missed season means no crop. No crop means default. Default means foreclosure. That is why the numbers are so devastating. Black farmers owned about 14% of the nation's farmland in 1920, and less than 1% by the late 1990s. Pigford v. Glickman finally forced a settlement in 1999, but by then much of the land and the generational wealth attached to it was already gone. The case did not expose a few isolated bad actors. It exposed a machinery of loss. Number 1. BET, Black Entertainment Television. The most famous Black media brand in America did not disappear in the 1990s. It changed hands, and sometimes that is the more important story. BET had become a cornerstone of Black television, a platform that proved Black audiences were not an afterthought but a market large enough to support dedicated national programming. When Viacom acquired BET in a deal valued at around $3 billion, the headlines focused on the size of the transaction and the wealth it created for founder Robert L. Johnson. But underneath that success story was another truth. One of the most powerful Black-owned media institutions in the country was no longer Black-owned. The brand remained. The control moved, and that is the pattern that ties much of this decade together. Not always destruction in the visible sense, but transfer. Transfer of ownership, transfer of leverage, transfer of future. When you line these stories up, the bank in Harlem, the sausage plant in Baltimore, the beauty empires in Chicago, the broadcasters, the contractors, the farmers, the billion-dollar conglomerate, the television network, the pattern stops looking random. These businesses were not all hit by the same event, but they were hit by the same era. A decade in which deregulation favored size, courts narrowed remedies, acquisitions replaced competition, and institutions built under segregation lost the little structural protection they had. That is what made the 1990s such a turning point. Not because Black businesses suddenly forgot how to build, innovate, or sell, but because many of the things they built became too valuable to leave independent and too exposed to survive untouched. If one of these surprised you, tell me which one in the comments.